Let's make this clear from the get-go. I have a problem with Tauforged Shards. I've received more than average, so I've been lucky in that regard, but I still have a problem with them. To explain that problem though, we're going to need to look into the very core of Warframe's design, and I'll do my best to separate raw fact from personal bias. I'm the Engineer, let's solve a practical problem. First, where we're at today. Archon Shards are a reward you can get after completing the Veilbreaker quest. One source is from Karl's Garrison, which gives you 1 shard per week and is never Tauforged. The other source is from Archon Hunts, which give 1 shard per week and has a 20% chance of being Tauforged. It's easy enough to see that DE intend for Tauforged Shards to make up 1/5 of all shards earned from defeating Archons. That's literally what 20% means. Whether you feel that number is too low or too high isn't my concern here today. DE chose 1/5 as their intended rate. What is my concern is how that fifth is distributed. By the time you're watching this video, many players will have had the opportunity to complete their 10th Archon Hunt. 10 Archon Shards, with a fifth of them being Tauforged, would average to 2 Tauforged per player. The keyword here is average. Here's the actual distribution of Tauforged after 10 Archon Hunts. The average is indeed exactly 2, with a standard deviation of 1.26 for stats nerds. 32% of players will have received more than 2 Tauforged, and 38% of players will have received less than 2 Tauforged. In fact, nearly 11% of players will have received no Tauforged Shards at all. And there is the start of my issue with the Tauforged system. Let's dive a bit deeper. You see, RNG on its own isn't a bad thing necessarily. It allows a single event to have multiple outcomes, which, in the case of loot, allows you to get multiple different rewards from repeating the same event. If you complete a spy mission, you're not always locked into getting the same 3 rewards from 3 vaults. For example, you have the potential to unlock 32 unique rewards from the Pavlov mission on Lua. This can give replay value to a mission. RNG can also make a game feel more exciting. It's a core aspect of games stretching back to well before Warframe was even released. In 2009 and 2011, Jamie Madigan, a doctor of psychology who's focused on video games, wrote about how random loot drops influence our gaming experience. He talked about how our brains are wired to respond positively to good things happening by way of dopamine. Our brains actually identify the patterns that lead to said good thing and release dopamine in anticipation of the actual event. What's more, when something unexpected but very good occurs, our neurons, as he puts it, really go nuts. This builds on psychology highlighted by B.F. Skinner, Ivan Pavlov, and so on, around the concept of operant conditioning. You may have heard of the Skinner box before, a contraption used to reward a test subject for doing the right thing or responding correctly to a stimulus. It's the same process at work. So this is how RNG loot creates excitement. We not only have the anticipation of reward, which keeps us going, but also the anticipation of an uncommon reward, which makes it feel even more wonderful. It's actually this attempt at anticipation and pattern finding that causes many players to invent ideas like running solo gives better rates or getting down reduces the chances of Tauforged. Those are both false, by the way, I just want to make that clear. It's just the brain trying to figure out how to get more of the positive feeling, and your brain doesn't accept randomness as an answer. But just as a coin has 2 sides, so too does this feeling. No matter who you are, you've experienced bad luck in Warframe by the time you've cared to watch this video. Maybe it was farming the 8 parts for Equinox, or maybe it was getting a stance mod from Void Sabotage. You challenged RNG, and you lost, slipping into the unlucky 50%, 90%, or lower still. I still get frequent comments on the video which frame takes the longest to farm from players lamenting exactly this. That said, having your anticipation not fulfilled isn't instantly crushing though. Psychologist Emil Hodzik was quoted in 2015 saying what that lack of fulfillment does is it builds up more tension and anticipation and makes you want to try it the next time. In a nutshell, knowing you can get the reward at any moment, even when you don't actually get it, still adds to the experience. By the way, I'll be linking these articles in the description if you want to check my sources on any of this. This does reach a limit, however. If things keep on being out of reach, if you keep on getting the bad result for too long, the anticipation breaks. Your pattern recognizing brain, not caring for RNG, recognizes a pattern of failure and urges you to do something else. We call that burnout, where the fun feeling is gone and you quit. Warframe has a number of measures in place to mitigate this feeling though. We have the transmutation system to enable obtaining mods through consuming duplicates we didn't want. We have the pity system introduced for Kuvaliches and Sisters of Parvos to help get the weapon you want. On top of this, we have Valence Fusion to combine weapon bonuses. We even have an active trading system, Nintendo Switch aside, which means you can trade your loot you don't want for loot you did want but failed to get. All of this mitigates the negative feeling of RNG not working in your favour, either by reducing RNG when things get too bad, or turning to a different system entirely, such as trading. Because of these mitigating systems, we players of Warframe mostly don't mind the process. The game encourages us to keep playing for the lucky score, rolling the dice, and waiting for the double sixes to appear. We oblige happily enough, knowing that in the worst case scenario, we just try again. If you don't get the Equinox piece, you can just run the mission more until you do get it. The problem is that if you have fewer protections against bad RNG, it feels worse when you get unlucky. The game becomes unfair. So now I bring you back around to Tauforged Shards. You cannot trade them. You cannot get them through any other gameplay. You have no bad luck mitigation system to fall back on, and you have no means to repeat that week's mission. The RNG isn't keeping you playing, because once the Archon Hunt is done, it's done. Come back next week just like everyone else. The RNG isn't stoking that anticipation because of the time break. With a week between attempts, you're not building up as much to the win. And the RNG isn't enabling you to get multiple unique rewards. It's only a pick between a worse version or a better version of the same reward. So really, why do we have RNG at all for these shards? I have more than the average number of Tauforged Shards. I did nothing differently to get these, however. I went through the same missions as you, same process as you. Hell, if you watched and followed my guide on how to one-shot an Archon, there's a chance you use the exact same build as me. But if you didn't get your fair share of Tauforged Shards, it wasn't you who failed. The game just said no. That is my problem with Tauforged Shards. DE have acknowledged that there is this discussion in the Warframe community, and there are a number of ways DE could go about addressing this in a future update. The default option is they could just leave the system as is and leave unlucky people mostly without Tauforged Shards. That's not a good choice in my opinion. If we swing the other way for total fairness, DE could remove the random Tauforged chance entirely. Instead, every Archon fight would give a second unique item. Let's call it a Tauforged Fragment. 1 Archon Shard plus 5 Tauforged Fragments, and you can upgrade that shard to Tauforged. This removes all RNG entirely, which has the upside of being perfectly fair, though there's the design downside of removing the anticipation and dopamine rush of a successful RNG roll. Alternatively still, DE could make it where the hunts track your Tauforged drops. If you get 4 normal shards in a row, then your 5th will be Tauforged. This isn't perfectly fair, as some players will still have more Tauforged shards than others, but it would elevate the unlucky people to at least the average intended rates. Now this exact change would produce more Tauforged shards than 20%. The only way to keep the average at 20% would either be to remove the potential to be unfairly lucky, or to reduce the Tauforged rate with a slightly less fair bad luck prevention. For example, a 1 in 6 Tauforged rate instead of 1 in 5, with a guaranteed Tauforged if your last 8 were normal, averages to a 20.5% drop rate. I did the simulation for that. This removes the chance of no Tauforged entirely, and stays close to DE's 20% rate, though you can still be unlucky enough to only get 1 in 9 Tauforged, not the average 1 in 5. Crucially, however, I would not want to see a system where you are asked to sacrifice more than 1 normal shard to get 1 Tauforged shard. You can only get so many shards per week, with no abilities to supplement this through trading, transmutation, or redoing the mission. Just as being denied Tauforged shards endlessly is unfair to unlucky players, having to choose between more shards or stronger shards when lucky players get both is also unfair. That's my final takeaway for you from this discussion of loot, psychology, and technical implementation. Life may be unfair, but a video game doesn't have to be. Alright then, that was a bit of a heavier topic. If you're a proper Cuppa supporter on Patreon, you'll have access to the mathematics and simulation code that has informed this video. The link for that is in the video description. If nothing else, I hope this has given you all some new insight into how the game mechanics tie into the psychology of fun. And as always, get shards, pray for Tauforged, and fight well, Tenno.